The Badge to the Bone podcast contains adult language, mature themes, psychological nudity. Viewer discretion is advised. The opinions expressed here are ours and ours alone. Buckle up.
All right, welcome back to Badge to the Bone. I'm Denny,
I'm Al.
and we are here for another episode, Al.
Yes, let's get on it.
Let's do it.
I'm giving up on society, up on my family, up on your social disease. I'm giving up on the industry, up on democracy, done with all your hypocrisy.
Hey, Al.
Hey, Denny.
And here we are again.
Here we are. Here we are again. How's it going for you?
It's going good. I
Yeah.
can't complain, I'm staying busy.
Yeah. Spring
It is. It's just spring, so...
usually equals busy.
But, by the time this one drops, it might be summertime.
It might.
Because we are, really far ahead this go-around, so... I'm still mixed on that. I like being ahead, but I also like being current, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I haven't, I think everybody that listens is starting to figure out that these guys are a work in progress all the time. Because we this year, this season, as it is, because we've only been at it
As it were.
like a year now, we have said, oh, let's record things in advance and get ahead of things, and now we're like,
Really?
yeah. And so
as we're recording this, I'm thinking about all the ones that haven't dropped yet.
I mean, we are people that are not used to being this ahead of the curve.
No. Well, the other aspect is we do it where we're recording and then something happens and we have a cancellation or somebody's not feeling good or one of us are sick or some, a life, as we've talked about, life happens. And next thing you know, now we're behind. Now we're rushing, trying to get something recorded, trying to get it dropped. It's just, I can't find the middle ground.
Right. And this season we were like, fuck all of that. We're
doing what makes this shit easy to deal with.
Because we do not get paid to do this.
We do not. We do not.
So yeah, we made it work for us,
We did it.
So we're sitting down and we're trying to plan for kind of really what amounts to the last probably 25% of what we're looking to do.
Yeah.
This season. And we're like, well, maybe we need just us on.
I like it. That's right.
And every so often it's just going to be us. You've been warned.
Hold on, I'm getting in the fridge.
Oh, well, he's going to need a beverage for this one.
Maybe just a little something extra.
just bring the bottle over here. Oh, dear Lord.
What the heck is that?
What is that?
I don't know. It was in the fridge. It's some bold rock. Says Copper Mug Mule.
What? All right.
I'm showing you my mule.
Thank God we haven't transitioned to video yet.
Hold on.
All right. We're recording this,
Should have got this ready before, We should have probably got that all straight before, but
yeah, well,
I figure I need a water as well.
Things happen,
But okay.
So we decided it's just gonna be us tonight.
Yeah, it's been a while since it's been just us.
Yeah. And so we, have talked on more than one occasion about how this show is rooted in some of our own experiences.
Yeah.
And to that end, this show really, as much as I like to say, I'm 50% of this show, was Denny's brainchild. And born of his own personal situations that kind of led him to, I'm just going to say, a better place, better place
well, yeah,
than you
absolutely.
were probably, what, 3 years ago now?
Yeah, shoot, I think we're going on 4, right?
Yeah, well, yeah, 4, probably about 4 now. And
Sorry, I had to make another adjustment.
okay,
But yeah, about 4 years. So
yeah, so about 4 years now, and you went through all the things you went through, and eventually came around and like, well, we need to have a podcast. We need to talk about these things, and I think we both had our issues, albeit very different. Yours were probably more severe.
I would say so.
But that's where this has always come from.
Yeah.
So Denny talked about his issues all the way back on the Roll Call Room podcast, probably 3 years ago now.
Yeah.
At least.
Shoot, no, I think it was.
Was it longer than that?
Maybe it was. Yeah, maybe it was about 3 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, that's probably about right.
And I was kind of surprised that you actually did that.
So was I.
I remember you calling saying, "Hey, I'm doing this. Check it out. Let me know what you think." And it's like, good for you.
Well, it's definitely not easy, and you got to talk about stuff that you're not proud of, stuff that would really rather talk about something else. But part of it is, for me, is excuse me. And we'll kind of get into some things, and we'll get some information out there, and everybody kind of see where I'm coming from. But with what I went through, a lot of things I'm not proud of. So, but part of that is owning it, and I got to own it. I got to step up and own it. Where I made mistakes, and there's reasons behind it, but I don't make excuses. I think there's a big difference. There's reasons why things will sometimes happen or that contribute, but there's no excuses. Nothing gives me an excuse for bad behavior. So a lot of that is owning it. And that was part of it for me, is just, I got to stand up and own it. This is, that's very important.
I'll say that is a consistent message that we've had on this show. Is we brought on some folks that have engaged in some poor decision making.
Yeah.
And I don't know of one that has been on that has not owned it.
They have all owned it. I think that's a big part of working through it. You're not excusing it. There's maybe some things behind the scenes that contributed to why you made certain decisions or where the road you went down, like for me. But again, it's not about an excuse. It's not about there is no excuse for bad behavior. It is what it is. But if I'm going to move forward from it, if I'm going to step forward with my best foot forward and keep my chin up, keep my head up, then I've got to own it, accept it, and learn from it, and then try to turn that bad situation, turn that into something that's good or helpful. So, that's why I went on that podcast. I thought there's a lot of stories I listened to that motivated me, that I can talk about it. I'm not proud of it, but I listened to other people talk about things that they went through, and I'm like, wow, they can stand up in front of everybody. I'm sitting right here, and they can do that. Then I can. And you don't know what story or what testimony you're going to hear, or what testimony is going to be out there that is going to resonate with somebody. It could be mine. It could be somebody else's. It could be yours. It could be Nick's. It could be somebody we bring on. You don't know. So I think that's why it's important for folks to talk about the struggles they've had. Give your testimony, give your story, because we can run 100 stories. 100 different people can come on here and give a story. It's that 101st that might be what is the breakthrough for somebody.
And to add to that, I heard an interesting perspective the other day, and it was from a motivational speaker for law enforcement, public safety, Travis House.
Right.
And he said something about how many of us come to the job already with some sort of baggage, family, life, whatever it is.
Yeah.
You got some sort of baggage, and you bring that to the job. You bring whatever other trauma, for lack of a better term, because it may or may not be legitimate trauma, but it is a stressor, a mental, spiritual stressor, and you bring that to the job, and the job is, as he said, more trauma, daily trauma, daily trauma, and the two kind of intertwine over time.
Yeah.
Right. So let's go back. At some point, you recognized within nearly 20 years on the job, and that's not including all the public safety work before that, that something was off. And that something that was off actually ended with you going to the Impact of Trauma conference.
Right.
And then your encounter with Nick from Roll Call Room.
Yep. So yeah, I went to the very first conference, and it wasn't nearly as organized as it is now. It was still good, had good speakers, and I listened to some great speakers, and it did leave an impression on me of hearing these things and hearing and the trauma and the things that folks have been exposed to, and that it started resonating with me. Unfortunately, I still wasn't making the step going, I need to do something. This is me here. And then I went, another year, same thing, and it got better. The conference got even better and more speakers, but still it wasn't quite sinking into me to apply it to me that, okay, I've got these things going on and I'm going down a bad road. So let's just touch on that, because Al, if we talked about this, because this is essentially our third season, and we've never really got into the real down, I guess, the very foundation of how this came to be and really what started it. So because it is, again, it's not always easy to talk about, but so I'm with the department I worked for, and I had a couple of different departments. And as you know, I had a lot of success. I was promoted detective, had 2 supervisory promotions. I had in supervision role. I was a platoon commander. I had made it to the rank of lieutenant. So all in all, I was having great success. I'm a second generation. My father was 43 years in law enforcement.
And your father, God rest his soul, great man that he was, he cast a big shadow.
Well, yeah, not anything that was intending, but sure. I mean, it's.
I mean, but those are. I mean that in the best way possible.
Yeah, no, I mean, he had a tremendous career, and he had some things fall in line for him early in his career that really kind of set that stage, and it just kind of took off from there. And he had a pretty tremendous career. And I mean, he had some bumps in the road as well, but all in all, he had a tremendously successful career. I always kind of compare it, and I don't want to. I hate to say compare, but I look at father-son combos throughout society and throughout our country, and just around, and a father-son combo that always kind of sticks to me that I see is, I don't know if you're into racing, if you're in NASCAR racing, but that Dale Earnhardt and Dale Earnhardt Jr. His dad was the pinnacle of racing. I mean, multi-championship. He was really, I think, arguably one of the best ever in the sport. And Junior got in, and Junior was good, but he never was quite that level. I don't think he quite achieved that. And he had a shorter career too. But yeah, I see that where, and it's nothing that his dad's not trying to cast any shadow. His dad just had some, got in at a time and had some tremendous success, and it's hard to follow that. So yeah, it is hard to follow, no doubt. But I had good success.
Yeah, I think we're extremely successful.
And and I was continuing to be successful. However, I was on the other side. I was struggling. At work, everything was fine. I was running 100%. I was good to go. I don't think anybody that worked for me or worked with me would really know that I had struggles. In fact, they'd probably think, "Oh man, he's got it all together." Nothing was farther from the truth. But I think they would view that, he's got it all together. He's going to continue to.
No,
excel.
I can definitely say those of us that knew you for as long as we have could tell something was wrong.
Sure.
And whatever was wrong was, growing.
Right.
And
it was.
But the problem was, and we've had this conversation offline, where it was kind of shortly before everything blew up in your life that our mutual best friend and I were having a conversation after you had left a gathering of the three of us.
Yeah. Yep. I remember.
And he looks over at me and goes, "Man, something's really wrong. I'm really worried about him." And I said, "Well, yeah, I agree." And then we both kind of looked at each other like, he ain't gonna listen to us. He ain't gonna talk about it. He ain't gonna listen to us. And yeah, because you were not a sharer.
No, it really never have been. And I was stubborn. And I think anybody that knows me that's listening is going to be overtly shaking their head. Yes, that he is very stubborn. And no, I was not a sharer. I kept everything bottled inside because on the outside appearances, I wanted to look like everything's hunky dory. Everything's all thumbs up. It's not, but it was. So, things just got worse. And essentially, as I try to tell the story, I tell folks that the best way I can describe it is at home, I was completely non-functioning. I was really quick to anger. I had a very short fuse. Everything bothered me. Everything ruined my day. The littlest thing.
I have no idea what that's like.
The littlest thing would completely ruin the entire day. And I remember my wife looking at me and sometimes going, why are you going to let that ruin the day? The day is fine. Why is that going to ruin the day? And it just wouldn't get through, and it would inevitably ruin the day. I argued over everything. I picked fights. I picked arguments. I had no patience. And I just continued to get worse and worse and worse. And I struggle with a little bit of depression as it is anyway, and that runs in the family a little bit. So on top of that.
Yes and yes on this side as well.
So on top of that, I'm dealing with that. I'm not sleeping, sleep deprived, not sleeping well, or it's, and we had another guest on earlier, Will, and he talked about, excuse me, and he made that good comment of it's either I'm not sleeping enough or I'm sleeping too much. So I battle with both. So I'm just not sleeping enough, and then it's where I want to sleep all day long and I don't want to get up, and so it just got worse, and where it all came crumbling down was, for me, unfortunately, as my behavior was just off the rails, and I had just no real grasp of keeping my personal life together, my emotions together. Unfortunately, I compounded that with infidelity. And that's where it really came.
Which is the kryptonite of couples.
It is. It is. And I hate to say it, since I have talked to people about what I went through, I've heard so many that go, "Oh, you had the same thing," where I went through that, and it's terrible. It sucks because I hate to think that there's somebody right now going through that or going down that road, because there's no good end for that road.
Mm-hmm.
There's just, it's not gonna end the way you would think. It's not gonna have a great ending. In the back of my mind, what was really is I think in the back of my mind, I knew everything was gonna crash down. It was almost like it was a self-destruct.
That was part of that conversation that our friend and I had.
Yeah. I was just on
this is going to blow up.
And I was on self-destruct. And it's almost like I could see it. It's like, I'm going to self-destruct and that's going to be it. So from there, what happened, of course, it did get discovered and it became an internal affairs complaint. And it came an internal affairs investigation and I was suspended. Crazy thing was I'd never been suspended before.
No.
Never.
Yeah.
3 agencies. At that time, it was, 19 years in, and they'd never been suspended. Never been under investigation.
Right.
Now, I don't mean I never arrested anybody. I mean, I arrested folks, and I was a busy guy, but, everything was on the up. I was never under investigation.
Mm-hmm.
So right there to be suspended, that was just a crusher, a real crusher. And then at the same time, of course, now my marriage is in jeopardy.
Mm-hmm.
My family's in jeopardy. Everything around me is in jeopardy. And I'm just caught. I'm at the very bottom.
Mm-hmm.
And, that took a toll. And I tell you, at that moment, when everything kind of came crashing down, that was probably where I was at the worst. And then the suicidal ideation came in.
Yes, I remember that coming up in some of our conversations.
Yeah.
Back then.
So, and it was bad because all I could see at that point is I've destroyed everything. I started looking, I'm going, I don't even know who I am. I don't even know what I've become because that's just not me. That's not how I was raised. That's not how I came up through the department. That's not how I came up around my family. And I'm like, what's left of me is gone.
Mm-hmm.
I've destroyed everything around me, hurt everybody around me that I can hurt. And
well, let's add to the mix that over the course of the last 4 years, your marriage has gone through what it's gone through.
Yeah.
You're trying to do the normal things of raising kids.
Yeah.
Figuring out what your next professional move is going to be. Our mutual best friend passes.
Yep.
Which was huge.
Mm-hmm.
Your father ends up passing within the last couple of years.
And fortunately, I had kind of come to the other side of this before he passed.
Yes. Yeah. Yes.
But those things followed up, and it would definitely have been easy to break me back down again.
Mm-hmm.
But that's where I was at, and I've had people ask, what are the things that brought you to that level of where you were just making bad decisions, you're self-destructed, and I think it's really a combination of everything. The horrible scenes weren't really, I don't think, a big trigger for me. I mean, they were terrible, and I think about them sometimes, and I think about some of the stuff I've seen, and it's stuff nobody should see. But the really biggest events that I really believe loomed over me, that really beat me down over time or wore me down over time, was just having some complex grief from 2 friends being killed in the line of duty. First being Gary Bureau.
Yeah.
And 6 months later, Robbie Green and Powhatan was killed. And I was friends with both of them. Gary and I were in the academy together. That hit hard because that was the closest I'd ever been to knowing someone that was gunned down in the line of duty. And it was startling. I just had a hard time processing that. I mean, I don't deal well with grief anyway, but that, and then before I could even really process that, I get the phone call, and I remember that. I remember the phone call for Gary. I was called in the middle of the night. Excuse me, about, I want to say it was probably close to 3 a.m. that he was killed at a little after 1, and I got the phone call that he had been shot and he didn't survive. Those 2 officers that were shot. And then, I went to go with another officer made notification to his girlfriend that he lived with. And then from there, I got reassigned to the detail that took care of his family the whole time they were here.
I remember.
So, I mean, I pretty much spent all day, every day with them. And then when I finally got back on the road, I went in there 6 months, and I remember working evening shift. I made a great arrest that night. And during that time, I heard a pursuit going that was in Powhatan. Powhatan State Police involved, and they usually give it out over the radio to notify us in case it's going to come to the county. And I was like, oh man, Powhatan's getting into something. And I finished up from the jail, and it was late. I mean, I was supposed to be off. I worked 3 to 12, and I think this is again, it's like 2 or 3 in the morning. I'm already late getting home, and I get in the car, and just as soon as I get in the car, I see the phone ring. It's a good friend of mine from Powhatan. He called up and he said, hey man, he said, I just want to give you a call. He said, we had a pursuit tonight. And I was like, oh man, yeah, I heard it on the radio. I said, how'd that turn out? He said, well, during the pursuit, he said, Robbie was involved in a motor vehicle crash. And I was like, gosh, shit. He said, and he didn't survive. And when he said that, it was a ton of bricks just fell right on me. And Robbie Green from Powhatan was fantastic. Just an all-around fantastic individual. He loved that department, loved that agency, loved that county. He was Powhatan through and through, and he's just always had a lot of fun hanging around Robbie. He was just, when you say everybody liked him, everybody loved Robbie. He was great. So it was a terrible loss, and it just stuck with me. And I think I just became angry over that. And year after year, I'm just angry. And when you add in all the other bad shit, all the other POSs that you arrest, I just would get more and more angry and fed up. And it ate away at me.
So it's kind of odd that all the years we've known one another, I knew those things weighed heavy.
Mm-hmm.
But we never had that conversation until literally right this moment about just how heavy. I mean, I saw because of the multiple times we went to the wall in DC,
Yeah.
and went to both their names.
Yes. Yeah. Every year.
But damn, we never ever talked about until literally right now how bad that weighed for as long as it did. And that's where I want to throttle you sometimes, because
no,
the old you was, fuck it, it's not a problem, let's keep marching.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk about the unpleasantness and blah blah blah. I mean, that was just who you were. And
that's you saying that right now is.
But we never had that conversation. I don't think you had that conversation with our friend.
No,
I don't think you had that. I know you didn't have that conversation with me.
I did not. I did not. And you bringing that up now really brings it into perspective that as tight as we were and as close as we were, that should have been something I should have been sitting down with y'all. We talking about this, man. This is what I think about this, or this is what happened. I'm pissed off. I'm angry over this. I don't know how to reconcile this. That was I don't think I've really reconciled it. But you're right. I mean, and I don't know if the listeners will understand the magnitude of that, but we are literally peeling away at this in the moment right now that we have never done, and that happened back in 2006.
Yeah, so that's been 18 years ago now.
Almost my whole career with my last agency. We never talked.
And I don't know if it was we were younger, dumber, less in tune with what we should have been.
All of the above. And I'm tough. It doesn't bother me, and I can't show weakness, and I can't show that it bothers me. I'll tell you right now is probably within the past, I'll say maybe 2 years, I've just gotten to where I can talk about the both of them without getting upset. And I still have to hold back a little bit because I don't think I really could talk about it all without getting emotionally upset. So that's just really within the past 2 years probably that I've been able to do that, where I could talk to somebody about it or have the conversation about it and not be emotionally triggered and upset. But yeah, the fact that we never that's what's wrong with it. That should have been a conversation we should have had in 06 when it happened. We should have been sitting down. And I should have been calling you guys, going, "Hey, let's go get a beverage, or let's put Tombstone on TV and watch it. Let me talk to him." But yeah, I got this stuck in my brain, and I'm not being able to reconcile it. So let's hash it out. And it should have been multiple conversations.
And just like, I mean, literally this moment, that light bulb. Yeah.
Yeah, that's yeah. So really here in the moment, we are finally unpacking that, or at least unpacking that to you, someone that I trust and have known for a long time, and it's been a big part of my life. So
That's yeah.
Yeah, I know.
And maybe that's the moral of the story for guys that are, younger and more junior in the profession. Don't make that mistake.
Don't hang on to it. Unpack it. Call your friends. Unpack that shit, because it will linger, and it did. And so getting back into the time, that's kind of, those are the big things. I mean, I could go through a litany of other things that I've experienced and seen that add to that knapsack you're carrying of, rocks you pick up along the way. But so I'm under investigation.
Mm-hmm.
I'm suspended.
Mm-hmm.
I had to turn in all my shit. Took my badge, took my ID, took my gun.
Mm-hmm.
So I had to call my dad, go meet with my dad, talk with him, and he kind of gave me a pep talk and work on it. But I'm at this where everything's falling apart, and so suicide ideation, man, it was heavy. It was so bad that I actually called the Blue Helpline. I actually called Blue Helpline. I really had made up my mind that this is the route that I'm going to go.
Hold on. Here we are again, because we'd had conversations. You'd had conversations with our friend Barrett. You had conversations with your dad.
Yep.
I know with others.
Yep.
I know that you had reached out to our favorite clinician,
Yep.
Doc Greenberg.
Yep.
But here I am,
I know,
sitting here right now, after all the conversations we've had, hearing that you called that number, and that's
it should have been a phone call to you or B. That's who the phone call should have been to, you or B.
Well, and yes, I don't discount, calling Blue Help, because anybody should call now.
No, yeah, I agree. But the reason behind it is, again, I'm still fighting with the fact that I don't want to let anybody know that I'm weak. And I don't want to let anybody know that I'm not the big, strong, tough guy that I claim to be. Actually, I'm not real big, so I'm kind of a smaller guy. But I'm not the.
Wait till we go to video.
I'm not
You'll
the
see
little
how small he is.
I'm not the little Napoleon. I'm not the little Napoleon that everybody thinks I am. I'm
more of a Chihuahua.
Oh shit! So, yeah, but that's why, because I didn't want to give that side of me up, to the people around me. I didn't want to show that weakness. And I think many struggle with that, and that is not good. It's not a weakness. It's not that you're any less of anything. You're going through something, and you got to work these things out. But I did make that call, because I had said it. I had pretty much how this is going to go down. The biggest, for me, determining of where this was going to take place, because I was concerned about who was going to find me.
Mm-hmm.
And I definitely didn't want anybody in my family to find me. And then I got it, pretty much set up where, okay, I can make sure that nobody in my family is going to find me. But one thing that stuck with me, that gave me that moment of pause, where I'm like, okay, I got to hang on a little bit longer, was I was worried, okay, so if they're not going to find me, there's going to be a first responder that's going to find me. It's going to be fire, rescue, or it's going to be police. It's probably going to be a police officer first.
Mm-hmm.
So what am I going to do to that officer that comes to another officer's suicide? What am I going to do to that person?
Perpetuate this cycle of trauma.
So that, and then I got angry because I couldn't figure out how to solve that dilemma.
Mm-hmm.
And it was either I go through with this and it is what it is, or I don't go through with this and I got to try to figure things out for the sake of, at least so I don't, you know, I've, all this other stuff, I've done all this stuff wrong. Maybe this one I could do something right by not throwing some other first responder and to have to go into a scene like that I've created.
Mm-hmm.
If that makes sense. But I was worried about what is that going to do to them. So, and we discussed that on Blue Hell. So I didn't. And long and short of it was, when I went back, I ended up taking a double demotion. So I went, the verdict was, and part when I talk about the infidelity, the reason it was such a big deal was because it involved another department member,
Mm-hmm.
and involved a more junior member of the department. So it was viewed as a fraternization, even though that individual didn't work directly for me. Just the separation of our standing and where we are, my rank, and their more junior member. It was classified as a fraternization, and so I was taken out of supervision and I was dropped down to corporal.
Mm-hmm.
So I remember that, no way, I'm leaving. I'm going. I was going to go back to my old agency. Unfortunately, the pay was going to be significantly. I mean, I was already going to take a hit for my pay being dropped down.
No, I remember when kind of that verdict came
Mhm.
down,
Mhm.
and you and me and B went out,
Yeah.
and we were, you kind of tossed that at us,
Yeah.
and we're like, well, what do you think? And we'll do this or that,
Yeah.
and yeah, I mean, like, that was tough.
It was. I remember it was actually B that said something that stuck with me, and he said, "D," he said, "you got to go back to work."
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Go back to work and get back into the swing of things." But he said, "Go back to work and then start deciding where you want to go from there." He said, "But that way you go back, you start working, get yourself back together, and then when you leave, it's on your terms.
Mm-hmm.
You're not just, you've been handed a stiff, very stiff and very hard punishment, and you're not leaving because of that. You're leaving on your terms because you've either found something else that you want, or you found something else to work." But he said, go on your terms. If you go because of that, you're going on their terms, not your terms. So that kind of stuck with me.
Yeah, and if I recall correctly, I agreed with him.
You did.
Because
I remember. You're like,
your chief could have handled it very, very differently.
Well, and we'll, to get into that too, actually, hang on, we're going to take one quick break. So lately we've had a lot of folks ask us, hey guys, how can we help support the podcast? Well, there's a lot of ways you can do that. And first is, wherever you're listening to Badge of the Bone, whatever platform you're using, make sure to follow us. That's a huge help. Also, go over to our Facebook page and make sure to like and follow us there. Another way you can support the podcast is through a monetary donation. If you notice in the descriptions to each episode, there's a link that says support this podcast. Click that link and you can make a monetary donation as small or as big as you like. You can also make it reoccurring. Any amount is helpful and we are appreciative. And the last way you can support the podcast is through our Badge of the Bone podcast store. The link for that is located on our Facebook page and on our website, badgeofthebone.com. And we've actually got some pretty cool stuff on the store. We've got t-shirts, we've got hoodies, stickers, we've got tumblers. The tumblers are great. I take my tumbler everywhere. It's awesome. Anything you get helps support this podcast. It helps us keep this thing going. So thanks so much. But let's get back to the show. All right, so we're back. Little break. But yeah, so when you talk about the chief could have handled it differently, he could. And when I'd actually kind of made up my mind that I was leaving. I was going to go back to my old agency. I was just going to take I was already taking a big pay cut. And anybody that I don't know about your agency, but the rumor was if you got demoted, they could only take like 5% of your pay. They couldn't drop you down. That is false. They certainly can. I took a 17%
Yeah, I was going to say
hit on my pay.
20, but yeah,
Yeah,
it was, yeah.
It was a lot. So I actually had somebody look that up because folks that were still in communication with me were trying to give some support, and I was like, hey, this is what I've heard. And they're like, oh yeah, I'm pretty sure that's the case. They can only take the 5%. So hell yeah, you'll be a high paid corporal. And I got a phone call. Well, we were wrong. That's not the case. So, but going to my old agency, it was going to be more like a 40% pay cut. It was going to be a huge cut.
Yeah.
And when I went to go get my ID and stuff back and kind of sign some final paperwork or whatnot, the captain in charge of internal affairs, who I'd known for quite some time, and he said, hey, look, your word has already gotten out that you were looking to go back to your old department. And it's funny how word travels fast, because it hadn't been long that I met with him, and man, they're already getting. And I told him, I said, I'm looking at it. He said, well, definitely give it some thought. He said, but I want to let you know the colonel had asked if you would meet with him and have a sit down with him, preferably before you make your decision, but at least before you go, if you'd have a sit down. So I told him, I said, well, yeah, I'm not going to say no. I mean, it was a hefty punishment. It's a double demotion. It was hefty, but it wasn't his fault. I mean, he didn't do it. I put myself in that position. He's the chief. He made a decision, and so I can't really blame him. I never did, and I can't be angry. So yeah, if that man wants to sit down and talk with me, I'll sit down and meet with him. So we did, and we had a discussion. And without getting into the details of the discussion, he pretty much made it clear that, look, you're not under any, since this has passed, now that you have been served your part, when you come back to work, you're not under probation. You don't have any limitations. He said, you can go back to supervision if you want. He said, the very next sergeant test, you're open to take the test. And he said, for you, you've already done the position, and I'm confident in how you handle your position. Get back and pass the test, and you're back in supervision. He said, if that's the route you want to go. But we talked for a while, and he made it very clear that, yep, I messed up. I took my punishment, took my medicine. He said that, I took it like a man, took it on the chin, and coming back to work, he said, but if I went back in supervision, that's 100% completely up to me. So the fact that he didn't give up on me, which meant a lot, because as far as I was concerned, I let that man down. I was one of his platoon commanders. I was a watch commander. I let him down. I dropped the ball big time.
Well, I think it's very fair to say most police chiefs, sheriffs would not have handled it with the amount of class and dignity that man did.
Well, yeah, most places, something like that happens, you get buried away in some position and don't ever think about putting in for supervision again. You are now pretty much blackballed, either until a whole bunch of people in those upper positions retire and you just outlast them, but otherwise you're pretty much blackballed.
You took your punishment, and now you're punished forever.
Right. That's right. Yeah, you're punished forever. It's just going to loom over you forever. So
no, but he handled it in a way that really. And this is, we're talking about a chief that really, at least in this area, has gotten a lot of public accolades for how he deals with things. And this is a story that no one knows. Really.
Right.
I mean, it's not a public thing.
No, it's not. I mean, and I've had people ask, but oh man, don't you think that punishment's too harsh? Or man, they didn't have to do all that, and maybe so. Maybe it was harsh. Maybe it didn't. I can't say, but it wasn't my decision. He is the chief. He's the colonel. It's his agency. He's got to set the tone. It's his decision. I can't say that I wouldn't have made the same decision. I don't know.
No, I can think of plenty of agency heads that would have just shown you the door.
Probably.
I can tell you, my agency, the agency I retired from, you'd have been shown the door.
Right. But he saw it was a mistake. He said, I'm not judging you. And bottom line is, if you want back in supervision, you can do it. He said, but, he said, and what he said is, I just can't have you in supervision right now. That's all it is right now. And we actually, after I went back to the road, we actually met again. He had offered to meet, for dinner. We sat and talked, and And same thing, it was really ball was in my court from here on out if I want to get back into supervision or what I want to do with the rest of my career. And that meant a lot that, he didn't give up. He didn't write me off.
Mhm.
So that was a lot. And then when at that point, then I was like, well, shit. If I go to my old department now, I really feel like an asshole because now this guy who has no reason to, there was a lot of people that were there. When you fall like that, it's always interesting to see who's still there.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
So, and who's going to be there to help pick you up and dust you off, and okay, let's keep on going down the road.
Mhm.
And it's interesting of who's there and who's not there. But I see him as one of the individuals that was there
Mhm.
to help pick me up off the road, dust me off. All right, come on, let's go, let's keep on going. So that meant a lot. And I would say there was a lot of people on the department that were like that. I got a lot of great phone calls,
Mhm.
but I thought, man, okay, now this chief has really kind of backed me up after I really dropped the ball here. I'm going to feel like a total dick if I leave and go to another agency. Hey, thanks. I appreciate the support. See ya. But so that really stuck with me to go ahead and stay. And then I was getting a lot of support from folks within the department. I was getting phone calls,
Mhm.
and a lot of them were, we don't care what's on your collar. We don't give a damn about that. We just want you to stay and enjoy working with you. So those meant a lot. And I stayed.
Mhm.
But I will tell you, walking into your first roll call early in the morning at 5:45 a.m. or 6 a.m. as a corporal when you were just a lieutenant a month ago is definitely something else.
Yeah.
It's not easy. And I can't say I didn't struggle after that. I got in a car and for a long time, I literally the area that I typically worked, there was a neighborhood little community association with their pool and stuff like that. And it was all closed. We're at winter time. So I would literally pull in that parking lot and just sit there and wait till I got a call. I didn't really interact with anybody. I didn't really say much. I would just sit there. And, I struggled again with that suicidal ideation came back again, unfortunately. That I was in the mind that, I can't do this. I've destroyed, I was still back in it. I've destroyed everything. My marriage was still, in dire straits, was pretty much on the brink of divorce. It was pretty much one of those where it's inevitable. The paperwork was there. It was, we were on the brink of divorce, and I just didn't know how I was going to dig myself out. I had that moment where everybody kind of helped, pat me on the back and let's come on, let's do this. And then, but as it sat in and sunk in, it was hard. It was hard going to work every day.
Mhm.
But I was seeing, Doc Greenberg, who we've had on,
Mhm.
and he made a great suggestion. And he said, you started your career to be a cop. You didn't start your career to be a sergeant, lieutenant, a captain, none of that stuff. You started to be a cop. That's what you wanted to do. And he said, I'm pretty sure, as active as you were, there was things you liked to do when you were a patrolman, that were your go-to things for enforcement or whatever. He said, go do those things again. He said, you will find your way back into it.
Mhm.
So I did. So when I was a young guy on the road, I always used to love to look for red light violations. You ran a red light and I was there. Oh, you're mine. That was my thing. I would just go to intersection after intersection and try to get to where I was in a spot where I could watch the light and watch you go through it. So I started doing that. And I started making some stops. And then before you know it, I was getting back into the role of things. I was getting back into the feel of the job. It was like being a cop all over again. I had to relearn some stuff, because we weren't handwriting FR 300s anymore. They were all on the computer. And I went to the class when I was a detective, but I never touched it again. So I had to kind of learn all that shit. And, getting all the paperwork and property paperwork and tagging my body worn camera video. I hadn't had to do that. But I got back into the routine of being a cop. Then I went and asked for a radar set And he's like, God, does it equipment? I said, man, all I got's this old piece of shit handheld. So I'm like, well, that'll work for me. I don't care. I said, does it show speed? He said, yes, it works for me. I don't need nothing new. Give the young guy something. I'll take that thing. And it worked. And so I started, doing some school zone speed enforcement was my big thing, hitting the school zone. And I started feeling better again. But, and then luckily for my marriage, I had, and the chief and a lot of members of the department had extended a lot of grace to me and a lot of support. And luckily, my wife had extended that grace as well.
Mm-hmm.
And, there's a lot to that, how we got back to how we used to be. But we were able to repair that. And we were able to move on from that. And, she's an incredible individual.
And she is. She is.
She really did. She's a pretty strong individual. And, and I'll what really made a difference for us. We'll go down this road is our church family, which we didn't have when all this happened.
Mm-hmm.
But, my daughter attended a service here when she was in town and found and recommended it to my wife. And she went and she really liked it. And at this time, we were actually separated. I was staying with my mother. And she said, hey, look, I went to this service. I liked it all a lot. I really liked the pastor. I really like what they talk about. It's very modern. It's not real stuffy, traditional. She said, but I think you'll probably like it. It's pretty laid back, kind of come as you are. And she told me, she said, look, I don't know what's going to happen with us. I don't know. But she said, I think you might get something out of it. And regardless of what happens, I think this would be good for you. So I'm like, okay, I'm doing anything to try to keep things together, hold things together. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to go.
Mm-hmm.
And I went. And the very first one, when he started giving his sermon, I thought it was a setup. I thought she had emailed this guy and said, look, this is what's going on. Somebody's got to get through to him because he's still not quite there yet. And I mean, I'm kind of, looking left and right, my eyes shifting left and right going, what in the world? This guy's talking about me right now. So it was like spot on. And then from there, we started going together and meeting folks there. And it really, that's, it was our faith is what saved our marriage. So I was fortunate in that. But from there, that's when it came to me figuring out, I probably need to talk about this stuff.
Yeah, because it was, what? Was it almost 2 years before we kicked this off that you came up with this idea?
Yeah. So we've gone through all this, and again, I've made very poor decisions and things that I'm not proud of. Hurt a lot of people, let a lot of people down. But fortunately, was able to get myself back to a better place, get myself back to where I'm feeling like me again. Seeing Doc Greenberg helped a lot. And I got to where, everything wasn't so awful, or things didn't ruin my day anymore. And I could sleep decent, and I could enjoy time with my family. And so I got myself in that better place. But I kept going to the trauma conference. And I got to a point where I'm like, I want to do something, because I know that I'm not the only guy in first responder world that has gone through shit like this or is going through it now. And I heard all these stories before at these trauma conferences, and these are the kind of things that would get through to people. So I went, and I was dead set on that conference to try to meet some folks and figure out, okay, how do I do this? And I was still kind of mixed, because I'm like, again, I'm just like, now I don't like talking about the bad decisions I made. I mean, I don't like talking about
who does,
the folks that are hurt my life, and me just not being me. I don't like. It's just not easy to talk about.
Mm-hmm.
You want to talk about the good things. So I went, and it was, ironically enough, it was just one of those really good conferences. It was the right mix. Jonathan Hickory was there.
Mm-hmm.
And he was one of the speakers, and he wrote a book called Break Every Chain, and they made it into a movie that was on. Oh man, was it on?
I watched it on Amazon.
Okay, Amazon. Okay, I
Yeah.
think it was on. And so I heard, his story, and his was very similar to mine. Very,
Yeah,
very,
lot of parallels.
yeah, a lot of parallels, a lot of the same things, a lot of the same bad choices, and he was able to get up and talk about that.
Mm-hmm.
And not only that, he was able to put it in a book, and then he was able to put it in a movie where all these people were watching that, this is the road this guy went down, and he's obviously not proud of it, but he has now taken that bad spot he was in, those bad decisions, he has now transformed them into, something good, something that other people can benefit from.
Transformed them into good works.
Yes, that's right. Exactly right. That's perfect, Al. Exactly right. So, but listening to him, I'm like, okay, if he can do that, then I can do this. I'm like, well, I wish I heard his story last year, but or 2 years ago, but I can do this. And then there was another individual there, Joe Smorrow, and he was on the TV series Crisis Cops that HBO did. It was San Antonio PD. His partner were part of like a mental health unit where they respond to mental health calls. Out of uniform, kind of a soft approach. And it was pretty good. It was a great series. And he's done a lot of things since he left the department, and he speaks a lot about that stuff. So I actually met up with him. We went on a break for lunch, and I walked up and talked to him. Actually, it was before when I went and talked to him after he'd been done, and said, "Hey, look, this is, I really appreciate, you talking about your story and all your stuff and all that you've done." And it kind of gave him a real nuts and bolts real quick of what I've gone through. And he said, man, what you're telling me, he said, I've had so many people come up to me and talk to me about those very issues, having that very stuff happen, exact same thing. And he said, but if you want to get to where you can talk about it, he said, I think it's important for folks to tell their stories. He said, other officers need to hear it because all the officers going through it. He said, but you first need to get comfortable talking about it because you are going to talk about something you're not proud of, things that make you upset. So you have to get to where you can talk about it and not be overly emotional or be triggered. So he said, my recommendation is you try to hop on a podcast. And, you don't have a camera in your face. You're not face to face with anybody and kind of talk about what happened. I said, yeah, that's a great idea. And we actually sat at a table for lunch and talked about it some more. And I thought that was some good advice. And then lo and behold, the very last speaker of the day was Nick from Roll Call Room. And I went up and talked to him, got his book, Mental Health Barricade. And he was like, oh, yeah. I asked where he's from. He said, from Alexandria, kind of, I'm here to speak. And this was before he actually went on to speak. And he said, I'm here to speak. And here's, wrote these books. And he said, I run a podcast called The Roll Call Room. I'm like, oh, you run a podcast? He's like, yeah. I said, I kind of wanted to get on a podcast and talk about what I'd gone through. And he's like, oh, what you got? So we talked for a little bit. He's like, oh, I definitely got to get you on.
Mm-hmm.
So after we spoke again before we left for the day and exchanged emails. And he said, shoot me an email, kind of give me a little cliff notes of what you went through. And then he said, we'll schedule you to be on. It was like a week later on a weekend, got on this podcast. And afterwards, he was like, if you ever want to do a podcast, he said, I'd be glad to help you out. I'm like, yeah, I don't know about all that. But he said, well, if you need any help, he said, I think you'd probably get a lot out of it, but I'm here to help you. So sure enough, shortly thereafter, I'm like, you know what? I think I want to do a podcast.
Yeah. And I didn't know how I felt about it. Really? I mean, because you were like, oh, I got this idea. I got this. Let's see, we're going to do this. We're going to do that. And then kind of scared the shit out of me.
Well, I mean, it did me too.
Like,
I don't know anything about any of this stuff. I got one friend that does a podcast, a very successful one, and I'm hoping, he'll help me out through the process. But
well, it wasn't. It was like, I again, everybody's situation is different, but I'm like, am I going to be expected to get on and talk about my shit and my feelings? Or like, how does this work? Is anybody going to actually listen to anything that we have to say? And I think really what changed my mind was listening to that episode of Roll Call Room that you went on with Nick and going, oh, yeah.
We can do this.
Okay, all right, I got it. Not sure how what plugs into what, but
Oh, that's a whole another podcast there. But when I thought about, I was like, I talked about it with Misty, and she was really a driving force with that. And she, my wife was like, "Oh, you need to do that."
Mhm.
She was really supportive, and you need to get that going. I think that would be good. And she's like, "Well, are you going to do a podcast by yourself? You get somebody on?" I'm like, "Oh, I think I'm going to get Al." But because I needed, as far as, I mean, and I'm sure that I have, plenty of folks that would be glad to get on the mic, but of somebody that I have the most history with,
Mhm.
that have history long before we ever even got into
Mhm.
law enforcement. So we have a lot of history. So I really thought, that's where I feel would be best, is someone that I have that history with. We have that dialogue.
Right.
We have had these conversations. Not, of course, as we've found out tonight, not all these conversations.
There was a couple things that got missed.
But we've had a lot of conversations.
Yeah.
And just a lot of history. And I thought it would be a great mix. And here we are, season 3.
Yeah. And
The guests are still rolling in. I got an email today from somebody that's a mental health professional, psychologist that does first responders. It says they listen and love what we're doing, and if we ever want to get their perspective, and then give them a call, and I might reach out and shoot an email.
Oh yeah.
But she had sent an email that she really likes what we're doing and good job and enjoys listening to us. That just came out of nowhere. So we're getting through.
Yeah. And
But that's kind of how I came to this, and that's a real glazed over version. I mean, this drew out for a lot longer. It didn't take the
oh no,
30 minutes it is for me to tell you about it. This was a drawn out.
It was months.
And it was a slow fade of me just crashing and just self-destructing. But those are the biggies, and of course the demotion, and then I did want to address it, but I did leave law enforcement. I did eventually leave, and it wasn't because of that. It almost turned a year since I'd got demoted, but I got offered a position where the pay was right, the schedule was right, everything was right, and I'd already been kind of looking, and so I took it, and I also knew, for me, I was in a good place in the department. Even I was contemplating whether I want to get back into supervision, or do I want to go work another unit, another area of the department that I never worked before, and really do something different. But what really was the pause on it this time is, one, I could see that it still was a stressor at home. It still caused a stressor, and I also knew that to have the success I did, it cost me a lot. It cost me a lot, not in money, but it cost me a lot in time, quality time with my family, stress,
right?
How I feel, the hours, all the things I missed. There's a sacrifice. If you're in law enforcement, anybody that's listening that's a supervisor, even if you're not, but the supervisor, they know there is a sacrifice you have to make to get those promotions and to get those positions. You have to be available at the wrong times. You have to be available when nobody else is,
and depending on the agency you work for, the chief you work for, it could be, I don't give a shit if I call you at 4 a.m. You better be answering the phone and Johnny on the spot right now, and you don't have a life.
Yeah.
And there's no such thing as an off day. And
so there's
I mean, that's no way to deal with anybody, but
there is a cost, and there would
Right.
be another cost for me to do it again.
Mm-hmm.
And for 20 years of my law enforcement, I always put the job first. The family always had to readjust
Mm-hmm.
to what my position was, whatever my hours were. Everybody at home had to
Mhm.
adjust and figure that out. So work always took precedent, was always number one. Not that I'm proud of that, but I didn't make any of my decisions at work based on how it's going to affect home.
Mm.
Home's just going to have to deal with it. Oh, I'm going to go to midnight, so home's going to have to deal with it. Oh, I'm going to go to on call, home's going to have to deal with it.
And when these discussions were going on and you were trying to make that decision,
Yeah.
I remember thinking, nah, man, get back in there. Stay with it. Stay with it. Stay with it. And then two things happened that changed my mind on that. One, seeing like that, it was like a giant sigh,
Yeah.
just a sigh of relief, like spiritual relief that when you just let that go,
Yeah.
just let go and moved on. I saw all of the positivity that you had coming off of that decision.
Yeah.
And then to understand it more on a personal level was me retiring.
Yeah.
And again, me now letting it go and going, holy shit. And
Yeah.
that
Well-
really does make all the sense that
It did. It was just for me, I had changed to where the number one important was the health of my marriage and the health of my family.
mhm,
I was putting those first for the very first time in my life. And I felt like if I stayed, I wouldn't be putting those first,
mhm,
and I would be putting those at risk for problems or for, my marriage to fail, to have, not have the time with my family that I want. So that job offer came at the right time with the right
Mhm.
money, the right schedule, everything kind of fell into place. And, I prayed on it. And it kind of fell into place. And I was ready to go, I'm going to do this because this is going to be best overall. This will help ensure that, if, even if worse comes to worse and I end up getting a divorce, say that comes to pass, at least I will know that I did everything
yeah,
to make that right. So,
you put your best foot forward.
right. So that was a decision, and I did leave law enforcement, and it has been good. I'm not telling folks to leave. You got to make that decision yourself. But for me, that was the right decision at the right time. I put the right things at the top of my list of what was important, and I'm getting the fruits of that because everything at home is good. It's better than it's ever been. We have our moments here, as any family does, and with 5 kids, we have our moments. But
And if anybody actually knew our wives, they'd know that they both have an abundance of personality.
oh yes, yes, absolutely. So so sure. I mean, but it really it has never been better, and we have never been stronger, and my family has never been better. So it was the right decision at the right time, and I just had to put that first. So I said goodbye to the LE career, but then I jumped into this to
Mhm.
where I'm still touching, the law enforcement profession, the first responders. I'm still contributing to that, just in a different way.
I think that's an important takeaway. That is, if you do get out, whether it's through normal retirement,
Yep.
some other set of circumstances, that there are still ways for you to impact the profession. There are still ways for you to serve.
Yeah. I think that's why I believe this podcast is important. I don't want to tout it as being we're the greatest thing since sliced bread. We're certainly not, but I do think it's important because we do have a place where those either in the profession now or formerly in the profession can come on here and offer something to the profession still. They can tell their story, tell what their resiliency, tell how they came through or what things helped them. We've had so many guests on that have talked about the different things where they were crushed and then they were able to rise above that and talk about their resiliency. And I think having those stories is great. That's why I do believe this podcast is important. I think it's important that we continue to have these stories. And as I said earlier, when I was talking about, did I want to tell my story? We don't know what is going to be that conversation that either turns the light on for somebody or has that breakthrough for somebody. It could have been episode 1. It could have been episode 10.
Mm-hmm.
It could be season 10, episode 4. Who knows? I mean, we don't know. So I feel like we kind of have to keep putting these out because somewhere somebody's going to listen to it and go, man, I went through that, or I'm going through that now, or, I'm in a place now where I feel I can't get out of, and it might make the difference for them.
Well, just think, we talked about how really a lot of the things you were dealing with go all the way back to 2006.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So at that point, I'd been on the job 9 years.
Yeah.
You'd been on a little less than me.
Yeah. Yeah.
And was anything like that out there?
Shit, no. Yeah.
How many times did we go to National Police Week, Police Memorial Week in DC?
Yep.
And we're down in Tent City, and there's this shit everywhere, and there's this service, and this T-shirt, and this vendor, and this bullshit, and do you recall ever seeing anything like this?
No.
No. It was like, shut up and drink.
Right. Here's your beer. Get a beer and buy a T-shirt. Here's some stickers.
But seriously, none of that stuff was there.
No. And what's ironic is you're there for one of the most traumatic things to happen to an agency or for members of an agency is to lose a member of the agency.
And there's actually zero.
Right.
Like, come talk to us at our table in the Tent City because we talk about trauma and resiliency and recovery.
Because what's crazy is you look at all those cops there.
Add that to the list of things that just popped into my head this episode.
All those cops there, Alan, and most of them are there because they know somebody on that wall.
Exactly.
And that's one of the most difficult, at least for me, the most traumatic thing to deal with is the loss of a brother officer.
And there was none of it.
In the line of duty. And there's nothing there that, hey, let's talk about this.
Mm-hmm.
Or it's time to talk.
Mm-hmm.
Because it really is. It's time to talk.
Mm-hmm.
Profession-wide, it's time to talk.
Yeah, I agree.
Man, well, we're gonna have to go to police. We gotta set up a tent.
Yeah.
They're
gonna charge us like $2,000.
It's just for like you get a 2 foot by 2 foot square. You can set a microphone and one leg in there.
Do you have T-shirts and beer? We have T-shirts and.
It would be great to be at that event, but man, it is. We looked at that. It's expensive.
Yeah, it's very, very.
Maybe if we get some supporters and stuff like that, we can get to something like police. We could be there. That would make for some really good recording because half everybody walking by is going to be inebriated.
Yeah.
But of all places you would think where you would have groups or companies or anything that has to do with the wellness aspect, that would be the place to be.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's an emotional weekend.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's an emotional weekend.
Again, another realization that came out of this episode.
Wow. Man, well, I guess you're right. We should talk about this. I've been kind of avoiding, but
it's okay.
Well, I think everybody that's been listening, probably wonders what got me out of police work, and again, not that got me out of police work, but it's my transition or my transformation is what made me move on from law enforcement. But, I think folks probably wonder, kind of what happened. And we talk about, what I went through. We always mention that with what you went through or what I experienced. They probably wonder, what was it? And that was, that was it. I went on self-destruct mode and tried my damnedest to self-destruct and tried my damnedest to end it all. And unfortunately, I didn't. And I'm here. Now we're talking on a podcast that nobody's listening to.
It's just important to remember that there is something beyond what you're going through.
Yeah.
The light at the end of the tunnel is not a train.
Yeah.
It's your way out.
Yeah. I mean, like that episode with Griffin, if today's a good day to die, and so is tomorrow.
Mm-hmm.
I really liked that because if you can hang on for another day, get to tomorrow. Then, when you get tomorrow, hang on one more day, get to the next day. And it may seem like it's not going to ease up, but it will.
Mm-hmm.
It will. Do short steps. Let me get to tomorrow. Let me just get through today. Then get through the next day. Then it's, let me get through to the week. Okay, today's a little better. Let me get through the week, and then it'll start to come around.
And talk to each other.
Man,
talk to each other more than we talked with each other 15 years ago.
Yeah. Yeah. We should have talked about my issues with all that back when it happened.
Mm-hmm.
It shouldn't be on season 3 of our podcast that we finally, that I talked to you about how I struggled so badly with that. We really should have been talking about that in the moment when it was happening. But
well, hopefully we didn't bring anybody down.
Right. Maybe this is why we have guests.
Yeah, but occasionally,
No, this was important.
We got to talk,
And this was important. I'm glad we did it. Glad we talked about it. But and I'll throw that out there again. Or not again, but as we always do. If you want to come on the podcast, shoot us an email. wearebadgetobone@gmail.com.
Yeah, definitely. Let us know.
Every story is important.
Tell us your story. Let us know about situations and people that are out there actually helping.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Because we want to tell those stories as well.
Yeah, no doubt. But yeah. A good episode with us, huh?
Yeah, I think that does it.
Yeah. But now that wraps up another episode.
I believe that it does.
And where can they find us?
They can find us on badgetothebone.com. They can email us at wearebadgetothebone@gmail.com. They can also find us on Facebook at Badge to the Bone.
Outstanding. And make sure, please, to like and follow us. Make sure to share the podcast. But until then, be safe
and be well.